Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode. Hello.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back. Thanks for listening.
Yes. Today we're doing, it's not a revisit of sorts. We have a podcast, and I want to say it's episode 43, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
You heard my confidence. It is in the 40s. I'm always bad at, I think, to look it up, and then I forget to do it before we start recording. And that one is about how we get our kids to help around the house. Whether we call them just like teamwork around the house. We don't call them chores, although sometimes I say that. But it's just that we're a team around the house, and these are the things we do. And when that we do talk about this a little bit, but the idea is, how do you teach your kids financial literacy and why we think it matters? And so, funny enough, we have had several conversations in recent weeks about this, and then it came up again a couple days ago, actually, that someone said they heard our kids say something like, "What is that about?" And so I explained it to him. I've literally sent these numbers out, I think 5 times in the past 3 weeks. And so when something like that happens, I thought, okay, let's podcast about that. I will be honest that I did get this concept from another podcast, and I do not remember.
You heard something from another podcast?
I know. Shocking news. I do not remember what the podcast was. It's a financial person. I know I have his book someplace in our house. And I think maybe in that episode 43, I might mention who it is. But
Probably.
I completely lost track of who it was. And I feel bad. I should have probably put in our little tracking sheet who it was so I could. But the concept is around in lots of places. Anyways, so we have been doing this for
a while.
I want to say 4 or 5 years, somewhere around there. It's been a while.
Yeah.
We tried everything else under the sun to help our kids understand money, and nothing was working. They just constantly still were asking for money for things and stuff like that, which, part of that is probably just that's what kids do.
I feel like I remember that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's just what kids do. But I think it was important to us. You guys I have no clue which podcast number this is, but us getting $60,000 out of debt and paying all that off and stuff, it was super important for us during that to have our kids grow up and know how to handle money. It doesn't mean it's a perfect thing, that they're not going to mess up with money later in life. I guarantee they will. But it was just during that process, I think you and I realized this is important. How do we teach our kids this younger than later?
Yeah.
How do we launch them into the world with a bit more understanding of being financial literate? Because unfortunately, at least the schools here in the UK, I remember being the same in the US, it's not something that's really taught. It should be an absolute requirement, I think, but it's just not something that is taught.
I think just talking about money in general is always awkward anyways, no matter what age you are. So the fact that we're hoping to somehow teach your kids how to do this, it can be very hard and awkward for people. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Money's always awkward.
It's just awkward.
And I don't think, we probably, I don't know if we were too transparent at one point and stuff like that. And we have been through seasons where we've had to tell the kids, we don't have enough money for that. We can't go to a movie. We don't have enough money for that and stuff like that. We've never wanted to put the worry on them, but them understanding there are seasons sometimes where, sure, we can go to movies. I'm using the movies as an example, whatever it may be, order pizza and whatever it might be, something that they might see as more of a treat. And then there's other times where we haven't been able to do that. And again, helping them understand some of this stuff, I think, is key. And so what we do with our kids, plain and simple, is that we we want them to understand, jump in here if I'm saying this wrongly.
No, yeah, you're fine.
We want them to understand that money comes from working. Now, we're not saying work all the time. That is absolutely not what we're
No.
saying. In fact, we're highly against that. We're like, you work and you rest. And rest is so important to be able to do quality work. And so, but we want them to understand money. I can't believe I was about ready to say the phrase money doesn't grow on trees. It's such a parent thing to say, and don't say that to your kids. And I don't think I've said that to our kids, but the fact that it just almost rolled out of my mouth like that, I may have.
I'm sure we've said it.
I'm sure we have, but you get what we mean. Like they need to understand it just doesn't pop out of thin air and you can go spend it all kind of thing. So what that means is our kids do, depending on their age, our oldest Zane has way more work to do around in the house than our youngest one does, and we pay them by their age. Which reminds me, somebody's getting a raise soon because of a birthday.
Yeah.
But we pay them because of their age. And so that means that Zane gets paid the most and our daughter Veda gets paid the least because she's getting paid by her age. But she also has the least amount of work to do in the house. And if you go back to that helping around the house thing, you can see what we have the kids do. Plain and simple, it is whatever you can think of to clean and keep the house like going. So every night of the week, someone's doing the dishes. Currently, they're just loading the dishwasher. We are expanding into doing the dishes that are by hand. They're not allowed to touch my iron skillets, though. That is a mom and dad only thing for now.
Yeah.
I don't think two of them couldn't lift them anyways. And then there is stuff like it could be every night we have wood floors. Somebody just does a quick broom sweep of the floors. And, there's usually a rubbish night.
Dusting,
that
straighten
kind of
up
stuff.
your room.
And then on Sundays, we have what we call, like, it's either Saturday, Sunday. It typically falls on Sunday. It's like everyone cleans the house. That's when it's like a hoovering, vacuuming, bathrooms are done, all rooms are picked up completely, that kind of thing. Certain people, if they have struggle in certain areas, I won't name names, but there is somebody who cannot keep their room clean. And so they, try not to use a pronoun so you can't figure out who it is. They will have that as a thing to do. Most days will be pick up your room.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And so we kind of just mentally keep track of whether they've done those things. Now, if someone is out because they have an activity, if someone is sick, if something else going on, we're not like, oh, well, we're not going to pay you for that day.
Yeah.
We're not that strict. We are like, well, yeah, if you were working and you were sick, you would have a day off and you would hopefully, depending on what you're doing.
I think the
have paid
biggest
for
thing
that,
is if there's a defiance and they're like, I'm not doing that, well,
Yes.
then they don't get paid.
They don't get paid for that day. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the week, we have, or it's on a Monday, we have what is called payday, and we just do it weekly. And that is when we sit down and they get paid. And so the way that works is they do not get paid their full amount. So for instance, Zane is 16. We do not give him 16 pounds every week. Instead, we break it out in percentages. And the reason why we break it out in percentages is we are trying to help them, what's the right word? Figuring this is like how you can deal with your money. You don't just get all your money and spend
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Like, we don't get a full paycheck of like, quote unquote, what we make.
Yeah.
There are certain percentages of different things, and certain things go to certain other things from that paycheck. So it's not really fully you get that. So we want them to understand that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then we want them, obviously, we're not taking taxes and stuff out of our kids. We call it commissions. It is not called pocket money. It's not called allowance or anything like that. Commissions basically means in order to get it, you have to do the work. I guess we could call it a paycheck, but we haven't gotten that far of calling it that.
Yeah.
But commission seems to be something they understand. And so the percentages are, and I'll go through those really quick, so let's say Zane gets paid 16. 25% of that 16 pounds goes to what we call a big dream fund. And that big dream fund is they pick that. So before we went to Disney World, our kids all were saving for things to get at Disney World. The two littles had picked out that they were going to make droids. So they were saving money for that. Zane wasn't sure what he was going to spend his money on, but he was saving for something at Disney. So that was something, whatever that percentage was. And they're not allowed to touch it till they decide what their big dream thing is. And the kids can vary on this. And so they'll often have something they really want that's a bigger ticket item. Usually we make them save, at least till it gets to 50 pounds or something before they can spend it. And some of them spend it the second it gets to 50 pounds.
Oh, yes.
And then others have it lingering for a long time. And I don't know what they haven't decided what they want to spend it on yet. They just know it's there. But our kids did save like 200 and something pounds over a long time period of time, all for Disney. So
Yeah.
that's the idea of like you put the idea there that we want them to understand and have literacy. And when it
almost
comes
like
to
a savings
finances,
account.
it's like a savings account that you just always put something away for that, and then you can dip into it if you want to go on a holiday, or it's a fun thing to dip into, but it's not touched all the time. And then 5% of whatever their pay is for impact. And so that is giving in some way or another. And that can be their choice. We don't choose for them what they want to give that money to. And it's 5%, so it's not a ton of money, but if they generally don't touch it for a long time, and so it does add up. And that could be any kind of giving, from helping out with something at school that school needs. It could be, finding out about somebody that has like a GoFundMe for something that they need, like health-wise or things like that. It could be a charity nonprofit they're super passionate about. I know Jude a couple times has given to like ocean stuff, cleaning up the oceans. And so we always say, like, pay attention, and then you'll be kind of guided of where to give that money. And we tell them all the time too, like, granted, they may only be giving 50 pounds to something, but it makes a huge impact. Like the idea that, whether you can give 1 million or 50, it still is an impact. And then 10% of it goes into what we call vault savings. So they don't get to ever touch that. We actually haven't decided yet what we're doing with that.
Yeah, we haven't.
The idea, I think, was for us to invest that money someplace to have them, and we may still do that. It's not like right now it just goes into savings.
Yeah.
And the idea would be at some age when they're an adult that we would release that to them and they can choose to do what they want. The unfortunate part of it is like Zane will have less money because we started this later in his life than Veda, but it's okay. He'll be okay with it, I think. And then whatever is left after those percentages is what we call like their spend money. And so that means they can do whatever they want with it. It goes to them right away. And so that looks different depending on how you do money with your kids. And so for Veda, we don't give her cash and stuff because nowhere takes cash really anymore here.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we don't give her cash or anything like that. We just keep track of it. And there's a thing that then she'll often ask, like, hey, how much do I have? And so, for instance, the other day, she bought another stuffed animal. I'm saying that with like, she has so many stuffed animals, but we were out.
She did get rid of one.
She did get rid of one, just let one in. I did tell her that was the rule. But with that, we were at a store. She saw a stuffed animal she wanted, and she said, how much of my spend money do I have? I told her she had plenty to get it, and so she got it. With the boys, we have started them with, they have like their own bank cards, like a debit card. And so we just put the money directly onto their debit card. And then they can, each of them spends it in different, Jude just recently, he saved that money and he didn't spend it for a while, and then he got a Lego set. So he kind of treated it like a dream fund. He's more of our saver, and you start to see personalities too.
Yeah.
He is more of I'm going to save for this thing and get it.
Yeah.
Whereas Zane's, sorry if you're listening, Zane, that he will go and just like grab snacks every day or something like that, or go to McDonald's with friends.
Go for lunch
and things like that. And so he will do that. But again, that teaches him. And he learns very quickly of like, money can go fast by getting
he even learned a little thing where he was like, oh, I just want to have like somebody bring me, or like order like a delivery. And he ordered like a sandwich from like some fast food place. And then he realized, and when he got it, it was like 10 pounds. And he was like, just for a sandwich? Because you had to pay the delivery fee and like all that stuff. And so he was like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
But he's learning,
He's learned. So. And it wasn't our money he was using. That was his money.
Yeah.
So that, again, that just shows. So again, the reason for us doing all of this is to help teaching them. Again, we're not taking taxes out or something like that. Maybe we'll get there eventually. I don't know. But it helps them understand, like, this is a good way of using money and not to just get it and spend it all, because it's going to have other uses and other things. And so we often tell the kids, like, your vault money, you should do that all the time. But, like, also something to think about is later in life, you will have this little thing that's called, groceries. And you will have something called utilities or rent or mortgage or whatever it may be. And I think it's been really useful for the kids too, because only once did we let one kid, because there was a limited time that something was available, quote unquote, go into debt for it. And we said, we will do this one time. And this shows you then how long it takes to pay off that debt. And this is without interest. And it wasn't that big of a ticket item. Anyways, he did have some money to go towards it.
But he did struggle with it.
But then he struggled because
When
then
he-
he wanted some
Yeah.
other week, 3 weeks into it, he wanted to get something and he realized he couldn't because he still owed us money.
Yeah.
And so we probably will let each kid do that once so they can have that same feeling.
Yeah.
But he did have that and he was like, oh, this is hard. And I was like, yep, this is what debt is then, except for you owe even more than what you actually paid for originally. So again, I'll go through those percentages. 25%, they get paid their age. 25% of that amount goes to a big dream savings. 5% goes to an impact, that is like giving, and they can save that and choose when they want to give it. 10% goes to vault savings, which is not touched. And then the rest that is left over is their spend money. And then I would say too, there are some things that we're planning to do with Zane, that he is at a certain age. He's 16 and getting closer to maybe leaving the house. I don't know. But there's all kinds of different financial classes you can have teenagers take. I didn't do anything like that when I was a teenager, and I wish I would have.
Yeah.
I know the one we're going to do because it's pretty cost effective, and certain people will agree or not agree with I don't agree with everything Dave Ramsey does, but he does have a good financial program, and we'll have Zane walk through that one. There's one for teens, and I want to say it's like $45 and it's online and stuff like that. There are other people that offer things like that too. So that's one that I think we might have him go through once he's done with school, with his exams and stuff like that, and kind of spend some time on that. Just because I think there's things as you start to get ready to be launched out into the world or go on to university and stuff.
Just like simple understanding of things,
money.
for sure.
Exactly. So he may take on, and that may be another podcast we do, he may take on different things soon that we have him, and he might be looking for a job and things like that. And so those will be some different things that he'll have a whole new learning curve with all of that.
Definitely.
And he will learn about taxes then.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So that is, I feel like I chatted a lot through that.
Yeah.
What do you have to add there?
No, I just think I think about it a lot as far as like just the simple things that our kids are learning, and it's just I'm thankful that we're able to do that, and we're able to do this situation. Obviously, we're really privileged to be able to do this for our kids, and obviously having the income to be able to do that.
True.
So I feel like super.
Not everyone can do this.
Not everybody can do this and that kind of thing. But again, I'm just thankful, obviously, knowing that not everyone can do what we're doing and that kind of thing. But also I'm just, I think it's cool. Like I love, like, especially one of the situations where one of them did borrow money, and like, it's just, I don't know, it's just really amazing to see the things that they learned from that and all that kind of stuff. And they missed out on some of the things that they wanted because they had spent their money and all that kind of stuff. So like simple lessons that they're slowly learning, or Zane, because he likes to spend little amounts lots of times with some of his like spending money and things like that, like realizing like I'm sure there's been moments where he's like, oh, I don't have any money this week. And he's probably had to say that to some of his friends when they're going out to McDonald's or whatever. And so just like, I think just having them experience these little things in a safe environment, hopefully is teaching them just simple things and simple understandings of how money works and how to be mature and how you use money and all that kind of stuff is, I don't know. I feel like I briefly remember doing some stuff when I was growing up, but not a lot. I don't think. I mean, I remember how important it was to have a job in order to have like spending money and things like that and all that. But so I'm just excited for our kids. Like, hopefully they won't make the same mistakes we did when we got married and how we spent money and how we weren't like completely smart about all that stuff. And so hopefully we're setting them up a little bit better than we were.
Yeah. And I think too, something to say as well, some of you may be listening thinking that's not a lot of money for like, I think Zane's ends up being, his percentage of spend money is like £9.60 or something a week. And you're right. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
And so just to be clear, like this would be different if like he's not into fancy shoes or like clothes and stuff like that. And so we're happy to buy those things at a reasonable amount for him, or he's not constantly going to the movies every weekend and things like that. And so depending on the situation, like sometimes things come out, and if we've already paid for him to go see that movie and he wants to go see it again, which often happens with him and his friends, they would go see the Marvel movie 3 times. That we're like, no, you need to pay for it the second time. And so we do pay for things like that for our kids, like certain activities, not all.
No.
Generally, we'll pay for the movie. You have to pay for your meal out that you're doing with your friends and things like that. We do pay for, we are in a situation where our kids don't have a car, so there's no gas involved or insurance involved and stuff like that. We do pay for their, it's very minimal though, for their public transport and stuff. It's not a lot of money. So I do know, depending where you live, those kinds of things, because the freedoms your kids have, like Zane doesn't have a license and stuff because, well, you can't even get one until you're 17 here, and we live in Sydney, doesn't need it. And so there are certain things like that might affect. Maybe you don't do the age, maybe you do something else, maybe you do less because that's what you can afford. We have gone through seasons, not since we've started this, but when we were trying other systems where we've had to tell the kids this is on pause for right now, and we're keeping track, and when we get more money, then we'll be able to give you that money. But currently, like, we're paying off debt and this is not a high priority. You can live without that money right now. And that kind of thing. And so you have to, don't do this if it's stretching your budget.
Yeah, exactly.
And your funds, be real with that and that kind of thing. And we often do another part of this, not that they get paid this, but they will ask, like, how much was that? Like, for instance, Zane just recently got new glasses. And when they said the amount and I paid for it, he's like, that's how much my glasses cost. And I said, yeah. And like currently with NHS under 16, he still gets a discount. And I was like, that stops next year, just so you know. And then we went back to go get contacts for him so he can swim and stuff like that. And again, we walked out and he was like, oh my gosh, that was only for a 3-month supply of contacts. Yep. So I think sometimes sharing with them, it's not to freak them out, and that's age appropriate. I don't think Veda would understand that whatsoever.
No, she would not.
So you don't need to be sitting your 4-year-old down and saying, this is how much your glasses cost. But Zane and Jude is probably there now too at the age of 12. They're very much more understanding things, or the groceries will come and they'll pick up the receipt from it and be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why when you guys ask to eat 4,000 things, like, I can't get the expensive stuff all the time and things like that. So it's including them as they get older into understanding the cost of actual things, because otherwise I think they have a perception of like, oh, everything is just affordable and things like that. And so, again, it's not to scare them, but it is to help them understand one day they're going to have that expense on their own. And they're going to have to know what that looks like and everything like that. Or they'll flights. That's when we fly back to the States. They're like, what?
Well, I mean, when we took Zane out for his birthday and it was all of us, and he was like, oh, like, seriously, that's how much this is? Like, he, like... Again, I think
we took him to a hibachi grill. And he was like, are you guys sure we should be eating here? We're like, this is only for your 16th.
Yeah.
This is why we're not eating here all the time.
Yeah. Again, it's good for him to see, like, like you said, like, not everything, like, have this false sense of affordability and being able to do everything and all that kind of stuff. But also realizing too, like, seeing mommy and daddy work. Yeah. And like, we work hard for the things that we're earning and things like that. And so, and we're just thankful for that. And so I think, just hope that they're seeing that as well.
Mm-hmm. So we highly think that doing something with your kids, if you're able to, do not stretch your finances to do this. Or like, when we were going through our debt, our kids were much younger. But we celebrated each debt we paid off with a pizza. We never got pizza out. That was the only time we did it. And like, they were understanding slightly what that process was, if that makes any sense. We were being very careful of how we were spending our money, but we also involved them in celebrating certain things too. And then they knew on the other side of some things would look different after we paid that off and that kind of stuff. So and you can go through different seasons, like I said, that we would pause this if something hit us financially and stuff. They would just have to understand that at that point. So I just really want to stress that and make sure we're not putting pressure on you to do this if it's not something you're able to do right now. Yeah. Because we've been there and we know.
Definitely.
So yeah, that is some of our thoughts and some of the things that we do in our family of just helping our kids understand money and finances. And I'm sure we will have even more as Zane is stepping into closer to being ready to launch out of the house and what that looks like, or getting a job and those kind of things. So yeah, let us know your questions you have on this. If you have any clarifying things that you want to know or how we do it. And then you can go back to that other podcast too. Somewhere in the 40s, I think it's episode 43, of what our kids do around the house more specifically, and like how we motivate them and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.